Yeah,
I appreciate the invite.
Oh, it's always fun to have you
Yeah.
here, Cam. We have a lot to talk about. I mentioned Publix at the intro. Let's go there. I'm going to talk in greater detail about this, but Publix, of course, is a very popular, large southeastern regional grocery chain based out of Lakeland, Florida. I've been shopping at Publix for decades, my time in Florida and here in Georgia, and I love them. They're a great store. Now, are you familiar with what they're doing with the carry law, with the carry since Florida went open carry? Have you followed that at all?
I am.
Wow.
Yeah, we've written about it a couple of times at Bearing Arms.
Yeah.
So when Public's position has always been follow, the state and federal laws.
Right.
So if you live in a, concealed carry state, you can carry concealed. You live in an open carry state, you can carry openly if you want. In Florida, that hasn't been an issue until about a year ago, right? Maybe a little bit less. That Florida became an open carry state through a judicial decision, and for months, Publix took the position that to follow the law. Right. Mm-hmm. If you can legally carry openly, carry concealed, whatever you want to do, just follow the law. Anti-gun activists did not like that, and they have been pressuring the company to make a change. And so recently, as Lee Williams details, they did change their policy, and there are signs on the doors in Florida and apparently a couple of other states, including Virginia. Mark, I did check. Publix has moved into like the Richmond area over the past couple of years, and I had the opportunity to swing by one. I think it was weekend before last, and sure enough, they've got the sign there at the door. Something like, "We politely ask you not to carry openly unless you're law enforcement." It's not, "Don't carry a gun in our stores." Mm-hmm. It's not, "This is our policy and we will have you removed." Right? I mean, it's couched very, very nicely. Right? We politely ask you not to carry. But it is still a policy it's a policy change on the part of Publix.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they're not doing that here in the Peach State. That's not an issue in Georgia. There's a carve out. And guys, that's what Lee wrote about when he covered this. Of course, Lee is based in Sarasota, Florida, so this is, big news for him down there, of course. But it's also national news, in particular, maybe more so regional for the Southeast. But it's important that everybody hears this and understands what's going on, because you're right, Cam. The signs that I've seen that have been sent to me, because we don't have them here. My son works at Publix. He's been working there for 5 years. They don't have that policy here. No one has said anything to them about that in the state of Georgia. So Lee's reporting on that is 100,000% accurate, as we always expect from him. But I find it odd. And when the sign is nice, we politely ask you not to boom, boom, boom. The question becomes, okay, so if somebody sees me print, what are they going to do? I guarantee you they likely have meetings in the back. Just don't say anything. They're going to be in and out. They're shopping. When they go, they go. If anything's a problem, let us know. And, of course, it's never a problem when it's a law-abiding citizen, as we've always seen. But if they do ask you, ladies and gentlemen, and you're carrying, and they ask you to leave, it becomes armed criminal trespass if you refuse. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a third-degree felony in virtually every state, I think in every state. Don't buck that system, okay? If you're asked to leave, leave. Cam, that's just good advice. Otherwise, here in the state of Georgia, even if they put that sign up, it does not carry the weight of law. So, I mean, I openly carry and conceal freely. Nobody's ever said anything to me. I do test that system.
Yeah, and I think that's the case in Virginia as well. And I took a picture of the sign. So here's the actual verbiage. Public stores are private property. Please observe the following. No smoking or vaping. Soliciting is prohibited. Shoes and shirt are required. No bicycles, skateboards, inline skates, segways, or hoverboards. Do not bring LP gas cylinders into the building. Publix kindly asks that only law enforcement openly carry firearms in our stores. No pets allowed. Only service animals are permitted. So I mean, you can see just the change in language for that one provision, right? We really don't want to make you guys mad, but
we're going to do it anyway. But we'll bury it down there in the because the devil's always in the details, ladies and gentlemen, right?
And so I suspect that you're right that if you go in and you're openly carrying and you're not being an attention grabbing jerk, they're probably not going to say anything at all. If a customer goes and complains and tries to make a stink, that's when, a manager may come over and say, "Hey, listen, we had the sign at the door." And I concur with you, Mark, abide by the law, but also don't be a jerk. It's the manager's You know, you're not talking to the CEO, right? You're talking to somebody who's
you're talking to my 21-year-old
right.
son. Okay, you're talking with kids that are working jobs in school. You know, those guys are just there working. Now, management, that's a different story. If you want to have, you know, I can tell you right now, grocery store managers make a lot of money. They're well up in the six figures when they're running a store. So
yeah,
feel free to have that conversation.
Not, but I would say still be polite. Don't be a jerk about it, because they're not the ones making that decision. They're the ones, you know, who are charged with enforcing that decision.
Correct. So it's rather interesting that Publix in a neighboring state, usually you would expect to see the same rule.
You would, yeah. You
know, really strange.
And Virginia's been open carry forever, so it's not like this is a change in Virginia. That's another, you know, unique twist on this. But I don't know if the Publix really wants to talk about this. I'm curious to see if Lee actually managed to get a comment from the company about why they did this in general, and then why the rules are different depending on the state where you live.
Yeah, my guess is they're not going to want to talk about it. I think they're just going to want to poo-poo
Probably
it, you know,
not.
and just not return a call. You'll probably see in there Publix didn't return a call for comment. I haven't gotten through all of his article yet. But, guys, we're going to have Lee on the program. It'll be Tuesday. Maybe bring him to the Monstercast if we have room in the schedule, because the holiday, we had some issues here, so that caused us not to be on air on Tuesday because of some technical difficulties, which is why, if anybody was wondering why, that's why we ran an encore on Tuesday, because of some engineering issues. But anyway, yeah, it's interesting, and we're going to continue to follow that. I find it fascinating because there is, Cam, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is some similarity here to what Starbucks was doing a number of years ago.
Yeah, I think so. You know, again, two institutions I just don't frequent all that often. So,
yeah, right.
But yes, I think and again, it was gun control activists pressuring, you know, the chain to ban guns from the stores. And I think Starbucks, again, kind of, well, we're not going to like demand it, but we'll kindly ask you, we'll politely ask you not to do this. And, you know, the gun control activists, by the way, they consider that a win. Even if it's political theater, and I mean, nothing, they can put out a press release. They can, you know, have a little victory drum circle or whatever it is that they do. So, you know, they're happy. They're satisfied with that. And I think the wink, wink, nod, nod is that, you know, listen, gun owners, again, don't be a jerk about it, but
go about your business. Just be nice.
Yeah, we're not going to kick you out of the store, right?
Yeah.
And
hey, Cam,
I hold
that thought.
Understanding.
We're getting ready to take a break, so when we come back, we'll continue that. And guys, I want to stay in Florida with you because I have an update for you on that goofy HOA story down there. Wow, this is fun. We'll talk about it when we come back. We've got Cam for the hour, and he's one of those 3 or 4 guests that I have, ladies and gentlemen, that just make my job and my life a whole lot easier on this national radio broadcast. We'll be right back. Don't go. Welcome back in, my brother. Always fun to have you here. Let's get you back up on the stage. How are you?
I am fantastic, Mark. Appreciate the invite, and I gotta tell you, a ready glass of cold water sounds really good right now.
It's hot in your studio. So guys, you know, it's funny because I put up a YouTube short and a video of Jared and I from Guns and Gadgets when he was on the program last Sunday, and it got thousands of views. Jared's a huge draw over on YouTube for obvious reasons from his Guns and Gadgets page. And as he was giving me some recommendations before we published the video and did a collaboration on it, he said, the only recommendation, he said, looks great, man. The only recommendation I would make is turn some AC on. You look hot and sweating in the studio. And I said it was during the live show is where the clips came from. So we turned it off. Misery loves company. I'm going to tell you, I feel better knowing that you're turning it on during the breaks like I am, right? The dog days aren't even upon us yet. All right, let's stay in Florida quickly, and then I want to go to Virginia where you are, because this HOA association, guys, we have a Blue Hair Florida HOA association down in Port St. Lucie that decided to ban guns on the common areas of the property. That means everywhere except your home, where you walk your dog, the parks, all the common areas, the gazebo, all that stuff in the neighborhoods. Well, the Florida Attorney General, Utmeyer, said, not going to fly around here, law dogs. And he sent a scathing letter saying you are in violation of Florida state constitution, Florida state law, and the U.S. Constitution. If that goes into effect, we will take legal action against you. And AWR is reporting today, and I'll read the headline and we can take it from there. Florida HOA backs off gun ban after state AG threatens legal action. Is that a shock to you, Cam?
I am, I am a little surprised that they decided not to put up any fight whatsoever, because this isn't your typical HOA. So tradition is this huge planned community. It's almost like a city within a city, right? So it's in Port St. Lucie.
I think the Villages, guys, that's kind of what it's like. Many of you probably know somebody that lives there. Okay.
I think they've got about 10,000 people who live there. Something like 4,000 homes, 300 acres of parks and lakes and open green spaces that, again, where concealed carry would have been banned, right? They have this huge shopping complex. Again, carry would have been banned there. And, often we think that HOAs can get around even preemption laws because they're private entities, right? But James Huffmeyer, the Attorney General, sent this letter saying, actually, no.
Yeah.
Your employees... employees of nonprofits, there's a Florida law that says you can't bar them from having firearms in the parking lot. There's another law that restricts entities that would include the governing board of this HOA from preventing visitors from carry. Now, this law applied specifically to parking lots.
Right.
So, I don't know. Again, they could have tried to fight this saying, well, okay, fine, we'll agree to that. But the parks, the trail system, we're still going to ban concealed carry there. I'm glad that they didn't. And, I think this might be an issue where the Florida legislature needs to go back and just make the law explicitly clear, right? That this is not just about carrying in parking lots. If a store in this town center wants to ban concealed carry, okay. But if you've got a corporation that's essentially acting as a municipality, that doesn't give them the authority to ban firearms in all these places where people, again, are living, they're working.
Right.
There's no magnet. It's not like these things are real sensitive spaces, right? There's no magnetometers. There's no dedicated police force. In fact, the police chief in Port St. Lucie said, this isn't a criminal offense, so we're not going to be enforcing this, right? So it would have been the HOA staff enforcing this, and you wouldn't have gone to jail, but they could rack up fines. You could put a lien on your home if necessary. So it's a weird deal, and I do hope that this is something that the other HOAs and smaller HOAs are paying attention to in Florida, and it's an issue that I think we as gun owners have to pay attention to across the country because, as you talk about all the time, Mark, the gun control advocates they go where they think they can find success. If that's Congress,
they're like rats, man.
Right?
They find a way through the crevice, man.
Absolutely,
they're cockroaches.
So if it's the local school board, they'll go there. If it's an HOA, they'll go there. So this is another area where I think we really need to be wary and be on the watch for other violations like this.
They do it quietly, and then when it makes news, it becomes an issue. Now, Uttmeyer made comments on just yesterday. Here's what he had to say. Tradition Community Association agreed to stop enforcing its unlawful firearm ban in common areas. We are working with the association to ensure this policy change is permanent and complies with Florida law. And he added this, ladies and gentlemen, and I know, particularly if you live behind the blue fence, you wish you had an attorney general like this, just like you wish you had, because it's Quang Nguyen month, you wish you had a shredder like Quang Nguyen in Arizona. More about him later. Here's what he had to say. For others who've reached out about their HOAs, don't worry, we hear you. And they do. I mean, this guy's been rock solid between DeSantis and him. What really strikes me as odd about this, Cam, is Florida is, as far as modern concealed carry laws go, and what do we have, 20 seconds, Greg? I'll just take us to the break with this, Cam, come back and get your comments and move on to another topic. But as Florida goes and modern concealed carry laws go, Florida started this back in 1987 with their permitting process that if you have a permit across the country, you can thank Florida for how that happened. Now, in hindsight, that's, it's unconstitutional to have a permit when the Second Amendment, in fact, is your permit. But we, much like we had to get Biden for 4 years in order to get back to Donald Trump, we had to go through the permit process before we could get 29 of 50 states to bring us constitutional carry. And we'll get to the other states as well, the other 21, we'll get there, but it's going to take some time. Odd, to say the least. We'll be back with Cam Edwards right after this. Don't go away. Virginia judge blocks enforcement of universal background checks. And then I'm going to follow that question up, or that topic up, with you with a comment from Texas Huntsman about whether or not Virginia voters have learned anything. But we'll get your comments on that. What's happening right now? None of this is working out well for the governor. It's not aging well for her, is it?
It is not. I had Phil Van Cleve from the Virginia Citizens Defense League on Cam and Company earlier today, and he said, the one silver lining in all of this is that, it's Attorney General Jay Jones who's defending all of these laws, and he is not the sharpest tool in the shed. But yeah, it so far has not worked out well. So what's going on here is last fall, a judge in Lynchburg Circuit Court found that the background check scheme in Virginia violated the state constitution. This is not a federal case. So we're not dealing with the Second Amendment. We're dealing with Article 1, Section 13 of the Virginia Constitution.
Right.
And the problem was that the background check law treats adults 18 to 20 differently than it does adults 21 and older. Under federal law, under the 21s can't buy a handgun from a commercial retailer. There's nothing preventing them from buying a gun in a private transfer, having a gun transferred to them. However, if you put that process through a NICS check, it's going to come back as denied because they're under the age of 21 mark, right? Yeah. So Virginia had a scheme where adults under the age of 21 didn't go through a NICS check. Everybody else had to. The judge said, no, this is not equal treatment under the law. Didn't say, universal background checks could never be unconstitutional, but just the way Virginia was implementing it was not. And so he enjoined the law. State police could not conduct these background checks on private transfers. Fast forward a few months, the Democrats pass a bill that is designed to address this. And the way that they address this, Mark, is banning 18 and 20-year-olds from purchasing handguns or having them transferred in a private transfer. The judge had already said several years ago that these individuals, they're adults under Virginia law. They have the right to possess and acquire the most common tool for self-defense. And yet the Democrats ignored what he had to say. And their fix just made the law as bad, just in a different way, right? And so they then tried to start enforcing background checks, saying, well, we fixed the problem. Well, no, you didn't. And so VCDL and Gunners of America filed a motion for contempt. Meanwhile, Attorney General Jay Jones said he had two arguments. He said, well, the injunction's moot because we passed this new law, but you should go ahead and lift the injunction anyway, just to be on the safe side. So there was a hearing yesterday.
Not the brightest bulb in the knife drawer with Jay Jones.
No.
God,
it did not go well for the Attorney General. Judge F. Patrick Yates ruled from the bench that the injunction stands and it is still in place, and the state police cannot resume these background checks on private transfers. And it was a big win for GOA and VCDL. And now Democrats are complaining that gun owners want to see violent offenders and domestic abusers easily get guns. That's not the issue here.
Not to mention it's patently absurd on its face.
Yes.
Okay, he's smart enough to know that. I'll hand him that.
But this is, this is the spin that they're putting on it, right? Because otherwise, you're going to have to admit, well, yeah, we passed a law that violates people's constitutional rights. So they don't want that to be the issue, right? Now, one of these guys, I got to tell you, Mark, Garrett McGuire is a delegate from Fairfax County. He's been on this tear on X talking about, how valuable these background checks are. And he actually claimed that if the universal background check law had not been subject to an injunction, that the guy who took a gun into the classroom at Old Dominion University, shot up an ROTC class, that guy would not have been able to get a gun because the background check law would have stopped him. Mark, the guy who sold him the gun stole the gun.
Yeah.
He stole the gun.
Cam, let me stop you there for one reason, and I want to go to a headline. You just tapped on this. I have to segue here real quick. AWR has a headline up. Let me find this. North Carolina was California. California, where is it? Background. Four shot at high school graduation in gun-controlled California. Who has all these laws? And it doesn't stop. Does Jones really believe this? Does he think we believe this?
I have no idea, but the judge certainly didn't believe it.
That's what matters.
And, right. So yeah, the bottom line is the injunctions in place. The Virginia State Police have put up notice on their website that they're not conducting background checks on private transfers. It's going to be really weird. I was talking to Van Cleve about this, and I said, so the state of Virginia, I'm assuming, is going to appeal the decision yesterday. And Philip said, I don't know that they can, because the case was closed. This was a final injunction that had been issued, and all of a sudden the state decides to ignore it.
Right.
And the judge says, no, you can't ignore it. That doesn't mean that the case got reopened, right? So Phil's not sure that there's anything actually to appeal. We haven't seen Jay Jones say that he will appeal. So this may be the end of the story, at least for the next few months, until they start drafting legislation for the next session. And then we'll see what harebrained scheme they come up with.
Oh, their creativity is going to be off the hook in the next legislative session in Virginia. It's going to be wild to see what happens, because we're going to have some decisions come down between now and then that are going to matter. And hopefully by that point, Cam, the Supreme Court has gotten off its duffs and taken a gun ban case. And love that rooster out there. Are you in a different time zone than I am? That's beautiful. Let me say this about that also. Phil Van Cleve will be on Armed American Radio's Monster Cast, ladies and gentlemen, coming up on Sunday. He'll be the first guest for the first half hour from 8 to 8:30 Eastern, 5 to 5:30 Pacific on hundreds of radio stations around the nation. And we're certainly going to question him about this. I think he's right. The only thing, and here's where I'll go. This is just my personal opinion. I could be way wrong here. Jay Jones is going to do what he does. But look at it this way. The fact that he's out there running his mouth with those stupid comments tells me he's likely not going to appeal it. That's why he's now pleading this nonsense. Otherwise, he probably would have said, absolutely not, we're going to appeal this decision. It's just the way they've worked in the past. I'm going to guess that's probably what, again, my opinion could be way off base here.
Listen, it's when you've got somebody who's this incompetent and this much of a political activist, it's very hard to predict what they're going to do with any certainty, right?
It is, yeah. Hey, hold on to that thought when we come back. Cam Edwards, welcome back in. So let me go to a comment here from Texas Huntsman, who I had the privilege and honor to meet at the NRA convention, Cam. And here's what he says. He says, would love to know if Cam thinks Virginia voters have learned their lesson and will stop sitting at home during elections. Great question. Got an answer for us, Cam?
I would like to think so.
I wish that answer came out quicker. I would have liked to have heard a quicker answer.
Well, you get the honest Cam here. I'd like to think so, but I'm not sure. I mean, we saw this vote for the Democrats trying to redistrict us and basically redistrict Republicans out of existence, right? To go from a very competitive 6-5 map to basically a 10-1 map favoring Democrats. And that passed by about 3%. There was, pretty big turnout. I think it's fair to say that rural Virginia was about to be disrepresented, lose the representation. They turned out in big numbers, but it was not enough. And that's what really concerns me, is that, going forward, we may see Democrats with a 2%, 3% majority in some of these states. So to me, the question for the Republican Party, and not just gun owners, is what do you do to get 3% back on your side or 5% on your side? I think part of that is the GOP coming out and actively defending the right to keep and bear arms. We've seen that from a lot of individual politicians. I was not impressed with Winsome Sears, the Republican gubernatorial candidate. When she ran for lieutenant governor, she was very vocal about her support for the Second Amendment.
Yes, she was.
That was nowhere to be seen in her gubernatorial campaign.
Noticeably,
none of the
noticeably. To any of us that followed the campaign, I thought that was very, very odd. And I'll go a step further. Even Trump's Republican Party platform in 2024 lacked significant statement about Second Amendment rights. Guys, if you're a politician listening, and I know some of you are, please run on this issue. You will win. Make this a party issue. Make this part of the platform. There's my 2 cents, Cam.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. So I think the potential for Virginia voters to wake up is there, but somebody has to deliver that wake-up call. And right now, I got to say, I'm not real impressed with the Virginia GOP as a party.
Yeah,
I think there's some real issues with the committee itself, the party leadership. Yeah, it is disappointing because we need a functional party, in order to, again, the Democrats are giving us gift after gift after gift here in terms of alienating the electorate. Abigail Spanberger is not a popular governor. Her honeymoon was over within a matter of weeks, if not months. And so she has lost a lot of political capital, a lot of political goodwill.
But the damage she's capable of doing over the next 3.5 years is going to be absolutely mind-boggling. And the angrier she gets, the worse she's going to become. It just looks like that's a part of her personality. And I hate to say that for Virginia residents, including my family that lives there. Good heavens.
But I think you're right. And next year, every seat in the state legislature is up for grabs. And I want to know that the Republican Party has a plan to be competitive in every single competitive district. And, part of that means, again, standing up in support of our Second Amendment rights. And again, we've got some individual politicians who are great on this issue, but the party apparatus as a whole really needs some help and some work.
It's lacking, and Virginia politicians pay attention to this stuff, I'm telling you. And guys, the single greatest thing you can do is join VCDL. It's that simple, because they will be at the tip of the spear, and the pressure that they'll be bringing down to bear on the Republican Party coming up in the elections for the House and Senate seats in Virginia is going to be significant. And there's power in numbers, guys. It's vcdl.org. And while I'm on that, Cam, I also want to mention to you folks the AZCDL. We are desperately fighting in Arizona right now to keep it from becoming Virginia. And guys, $40 if you join AZCDL, $25 if you join VCDL. It's free to join Connecticut Citizens Defense League. Get involved by joining these organizations. AZCDL needs our help desperately now to keep people like Kwong Win in office and keep that very razor-thin majority, or they become Virginia. It will happen overnight, just like that, in the most gun-friendly state in the nation. So please, you make a difference. Cam, real quick with our last just few seconds, the Brady campaign is cheering Tuesday's passage of storage legislation in New York requiring gun owners to lock up their firearms. I'm going to go this far right now, and I'm going to tell you, if you're listening in New York, do not comply with this. Live your life in your own home. Just live your life, ladies and gentlemen. No human being possesses the moral authority to tell you that you have to lock your guns up in your own home. Cam, I'd love your thoughts on that, real quick.
Well, I'm right there with you. And listen, again, we talk about the assumptions of the slanders of the gun control groups, right? You want to see domestic abusers get guns. You care more about your guns than your kids, right? That's the argument that they think we're making when we're opposed to mandatory storage laws, which, again, is deeply offensive. The issue is that there's no one-size-fits-all policy, right? If you live in a home where you don't have any kids, you should not have to treat your firearms the same way you live in a home if you've got a 1-year-old child or a 3-year-old toddler. If you've got teenagers who are bringing their friends in all the time and you don't necessarily know and have vetted all of them. I can tell you how I have stored my firearms throughout my life has changed depending on the circumstances within my home. So, again, this idea that, you got to store it up. If anybody touches that gun, we're going to hold you criminally liable. It's not going to save lives, but it is, I think, going to endanger gun owners.
It will endanger
New Yorkers.
It will. It's that simple.
Both from a public safety perspective and from the long arm of the law perspective.
There's no question about it.
It endangers you in multiple ways.
30. Cam, I love you, man. We're getting ready to call it here in 30. We're taking it right up to the break. Thank you so much for being here. I love when you're a guest on the program. We'll get some YouTube videos of Cam on the show today, cut up, get them out later on today. That's on the schedule. Guys, if you live in New York, live your lives. It's that simple. Just do it. Just take a stand. This is what you've got to do. Guys, we're going to get up and do it again tomorrow because they don't want us to. Make sure to visit all of our great partners at armedamericanradio.com.org. Stay safe. See you on the radio.